Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I just wanted to say hello, welcome, and you can say hello in the chat if you so choose. Hopefully the chat is there. We've been having issues all week with the chat, but if it's not there, there is a Q&A section. You can say hello in the chat, and if you so choose, let us know where you are joining us from. As you do that, I'm just going to, again, welcome everyone, introduce everyone here, and get us started with our chat. So again, I'd like to welcome you to the third of our four live expert sessions for World Homeschoolers Day 2023. And today's session is brought to you by Hewitt Learning. So before we begin, I'll introduce myself as well as our presenter. So hi, everyone. I'm Camille Kirksey. I'm the founder of World Homeschoolers Day. I'm a homeschool mom of 3, from teens to, I guess she's a tween now, 8 years old. I guess it starts around there. And I've been homeschooling since 2013. I am a homeschool expert and mindset coach. And I started this holiday just to celebrate homeschoolers as well as raise awareness for diversity and inclusion in the homeschool community. Today, we are joined by our presenter, Kristin Lehman, the Director of Educational Services over at Hewitt Learning, who is a provider of homeschool curriculum, testing, and more. And we'll learn more about what they offer as we go through the webinar. So again, if you are joining us, just say hello in the chat if you so choose and where you are joining from. If you don't see a chat, you can use the Q&A section and we'll be able to see your response there. So today, Kristin is going to talk about being a bridge builder, how homeschooling parents can equip their children for success. And as a homeschooler, I'm taking notes too. I want to learn the things that I can do to be a better bridge builder, to make sure my children are ready to be successful children as well as adults. So before we get started, we're going to ask you a question. And again, hopefully this chat, webinar chat is here. If not, you can put your response in the Q&A section. But we want to know, what's one valuable lesson or teaching from your family's heritage that you believe is important to pass down to your children? So what's something that you feel is important that's from your heritage that you feel like your children really need to know? And you can go ahead and put that in the chat if you so choose. And while we're waiting for that, first of all, again, welcome, Kristin. We're glad to have you today. And I can just share something that jumps out to mind for me. One of the things that our family does is we're really family oriented. We're very much homebodies. And one of the reasons we homeschool, of course, is so we can build our own family culture. And so I hope they take these little nuggets, whatever it is that they feel is important that I share, because growing up, I was taking, everybody does this, you take what works from your parents and you do your own thing. But I hope they really learn to advocate for themselves and they really know who they are. That's something that I really think is important as a Black family who is living an alternative life. I hope they really take that, like our culture is family oriented, but also to know yourself too. You know, the self-actualization type of journey is for kids as well. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't see any questions. So we can, I don't know if you wanted to answer.
I was going to say, for me, one of the things that I value the most, and it actually ties in with what I was going to talk about today, is my mom taught me at a young age that every situation, every person is different. And so every tool that we have, it needs to be unique and adapted to fit that particular situation or that particular environment. And so we need to really build out, as she taught me, I needed to start building out my toolbox of resources so that I could find the right tool for the given situation. And that was something that I value and I hope my kids, and I resonate with what you're saying as well, of making sure the kids know who they are and able to go out into the wider world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, both of those are things. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love the toolbox reference. First of all, it's the visual thing. You're putting in there and taking out what you need when you need it. Because toolboxes, they grow. You may not need those tools all the time. But if
Yep,
they're there,
exactly.
yeah, you can
And
pull
sometimes you look at it and go, wait, I haven't used this tool forever. I don't know why it works. I'm
right.
going to get rid of
you
it.
know. But if you need it again, you can go get it again and you can move forward
Exactly.
with it. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's great. Yeah. So you know what? Let's just lead into our first point that you want to share with
Yeah,
us today.
absolutely. I'm going to break down this bridge building concept today into three main categories. We're going to look at the past, the present, and the future. So, as parents and educators, we are the bridge builders, and we're tasked with a vital job of connecting our kids with the wider world. And that starts with the past. Building bridges to the past helps our kids, helps us equip them with really a profound understanding of their identities. It helps them build strength, resilience, and wisdom, and all those different skills that they need to then face the future. The saying, to know where we're going, we have to understand where we've been. That's really what we're going to be talking about. So, our in building bridges to the past, our family stories really are like a treasure chest full of really important lessons. We tell these stories to our kids, and we do it not just to pass the time, although sometimes that's why we do it too, but we do it so that we can give them those ideas and values that can shape their lives. Um, just think about it. I mean, when we're giving those stories, we're sharing our personal and our ancestral stories, we're giving them more than just simple anecdotes. We're providing context, we're providing values, insights that help shape not only their worldview, but their own personal development. I'll give you an example. In my family, our lineage traces back to the passengers aboard the Mayflower, and it's a rich tapestry of history that provides values, but also complexities that our family had to analyze and process and look at the impact that our history and our ancestors had on the world around us. And so those history pieces, the families and the complexities of families and history, both distant ancestors and close relatives, they provide a context for the lessons that we want to impart to our kids. Conveying the heritage isn't a dry recitation of facts. It's really about breathing life into the narrative, engaging kids' minds, stirring their emotions, and helping kids process the effects we have on other people and how complex each individual person and each individual situation is. So, given how complicated families and people are, how, as homeschooling parents, do we make sure we're building good bridges to the past? Well, to do that, here's that toolbox analogy. We want to create a toolbox of resources and strategies because every student is unique, every story is different. The toolbox could include things like family photos, keepsakes from ancestors, recipes for food your family has loved for generations. Those types of things make history feel really real and personal. And things like incorporating a toddler into webinars that likes to come into play as well. So this is my son might be dropping in and out.
Mommy?
Yes, sir.
I'm finding one.
Okay, take this out. So like this, people and situations are complex. You have to roll with the punches. You have to be able to process things as they come. And when it comes to talking about tough or confusing things from the past, you need to take into account both your family, the story, and your kids' individual needs. You need to be able to provide a safe environment that's suitable for your child to be able to help them process complex emotions and complicated history. Providing a space for them to help them understand not only their past better, but also giving them tools that they can use when they're facing difficult situations in their own life. There's lots of tools you can use in doing this. Books are a great way to do that. At Hewitt, our Lightning Lit series purposely incorporates a lot of different books from different perspectives, the readers, giving kids a rich background to draw from. One example is when my kids were going through it, we read Morning Girl. And Morning Girl is from the perspective of the Taino girl, and you realize at the end of the story that she's encountering Columbus. And so you're being able to see from her perspective, her world, and be able to absorb what she's going through. And so books can help you process a lot of different things. Essentially, or equally essential in your toolbox should be strategies for managing diverse needs. Another thing is, in my family, I've got one child with sensory processing who needs lots of quiet, and I've got another who has ADHD and needs lots of stimulation and lots of activity. And so how do you find competing needs? How do you solve both legitimate needs for kids that conflict with each other? And so by processing through those in your family, and finding ways to meet very differing needs, you can show your kids that everyone is important, and we can find solutions even when legitimate needs clash. We're all going to make mistakes along the way, guaranteed. So as you're on this journey, don't forget to include tools for healing and helping kids develop that emotional resilience as well. Some families, you've got to go through your own personal healing first, because if you haven't resolved some of those things in yourself, you're not going to be able to share that journey with your kids. And sharing from your own struggles, your own hurts, your own journey can show your kids that it's possible to not just survive, but thrive after tough times. Shared journals. This is one thing we've done in our family, is just get a regular spiral notebook and you write a note and lay it on their pillow. And then whenever they want to, they can write a note back and put it back on your pillow. And it kind of decreases the intensity and gives a way to communicate and process sometimes difficult things. So shared journals are another way to do it. So really, as we're building these bridges to the past, we want to give our kids that sense of identity and heritage, but also equip them with the skills that they need to be able to process the world around them today and how they fit in the larger picture. They can learn resilience from the stories. They can draw strength from personal tales. They can gain insight from shared heritage and how our ancestries have interacted with other cultures, and also develop adaptability from just managing differing needs in that neurodiverse population. The bridges that we're building can't be static. They cannot, they're ever changing. As your kids grow and change, they require constant maintenance. But it really is worth the effort. By connecting kids to the past, we're going to be able to prepare them more for the future and kind of provide them that strong foundation for wisdom and resilience. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the building bridges to the past.
Yeah, so many things that you said are just spot on. There are things that, especially like the context of, let's say if we're in, this is something that, all homeschoolers try to figure out, is the history portion of education. Like, how do we teach it? How do you keep it interesting?
Absolutely.
How do you make it relevant? And the thing that I found with, at least with my kids and with me, is like providing that context from the past to help you, because obviously it repeats itself too, but it helps you understand what's happening now and probably what's coming in the future. And so not only is that like our shared world past, the national past of us, but it is that personal family past too, to say, and even it can help you understand yourself more, because it's like, oh, as I remember as a kid, I always felt different because I was very outspoken and I kind of had my own mind, and I didn't really see my parents doing that. They seemed very reserved. But when I became an adult and they gave themselves permission to be their full selves, I was like, oh, it would have been helpful to know this back then. So that's one of the things. That's why I say I want my kids to know who they are as soon as
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Anyone that is watching or even on the replay, we would love to know some things that are resonating with you. And I'm just going to go over a few things that you mentioned too. And one of the big things that I'm all about overall is about that personal healing journey. because boy, oh boy, is it humbling, but it teaches you so much, and it gives you that that empathy for what other people have gone through, you know, as far as your family, what you've gone through to get where you are now. And then it gives
Totally.
you information to say, hey, let's do this the same, or let's do this differently. But I think it creates that, like, that empathy to say, it's very easy to judge, you know, like, oh, I wouldn't have done that if I was back then, but really,
Totally. Really?
let's
Yeah.
look at your own past. Like, can you say,
hmm
yeah, something else that
Yeah.
stood out to me is the toolbox again. Creating that toolbox, and how you were saying, you know, fill it with resources and strategies. And as homeschoolers, and you know, we always think about for us, our toolbox, what we're building, our things, but we're building ours so our kids can build theirs.
Exactly.
And the past helps us do that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that so much. All right, I think those are the bigger things that stood out to me. I love, and I love the past, present, future is so always so relevant. I love that that's how we're tackling this, because it, you know, this topic can feel very big. Like, how
Oh
can
yeah,
I,
totally.
you know, like the how can I be a part of the success of my kids? And this is helping give context to that. So appreciate that. All
Yeah.
right, well, let's ask another question before we move on to the present. And we would like to know, how do you expose your kids to differing beliefs, values, and backgrounds? So again, if you're here and you want to share, the chat looks to be open. If not, the Q&A section is. But how do you expose your kids to differing beliefs, values, and backgrounds? And so, Kristin, do you have any insight on how you do that with your kids?
I'm actually going to give a couple examples here in a second.
Oh, well, we don't want
But
to spoil it if you don't want to.
oh, it's fine. There's a lot of different ways. I mean, and part of it is it's just adapting to the kids and what they're using, what they're interested in to be able to drive, because there's so many opportunities out there. And so how do you find what your kids are interested in to be able to engage them in and narrow down all those opportunities?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one of the things I do, I think I have to do it as a Black mom who who is very intentional about the truth. You know, I seek out other cultures, but also our own culture, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure I'm providing a more truthful, you know, realistic worldview. So it's a thing of, you know, and even this is something we talked about in the last webinar, about windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors.
Yep.
You know, I just love that.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, because it's visual, first of all, and then it explains exactly how to do this, how to
Well,
expose them to things.
yeah, the windows and mirrors concept is one that's really driven my my philosophy in homeschooling for a while, and I love the being proactive about what books you choose, about which resources you engage in, making sure you're finding those ones that I'm listening to a book right now called The Lies Your Teacher Told You, I think is what it's called. But it's
Mm-hmm.
looking at history and all the different pieces and saying, let's analyze history and say history is a complex piece. You know, how do we know fact is what happened, but all we have is that reflective speaking about the past. So yeah, picking those ones that are going to challenge thinking and teach kids how to think
Yeah,
are a great
absolutely.
way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, we can move on to our second point, which is the present.
Awesome. So yeah, let's jump into the present and think about what it means to build bridges in the present. So when we're doing this, we're not just talking about surviving in the day-to-day. We're talking about how do we engage with the world actively and purposefully, like what we were just talking about. We want to open doors to understanding people's perspectives, beliefs, experiences. Yeah, a lot. And why is it so important? I mean, this is critical because it fosters empathy, it broadens viewpoints, and helps kids develop the adaptability that they need to be successful in this wonderfully diverse world. So imagine with me for a moment your home as an island, safe, nurturing space. That's where you've got all the mirrors going on. But for your world, or for your child to be able to navigate life successfully, they have to leave the island. They've got to venture out. And so they need bridges to be able to connect them to the various shores of knowledge, experience, perspectives. And we as homeschooling parents have the power and the responsibility to help build those bridges. Growing up, I had the privilege of living in a family that didn't just live on our island. We were able to invite the world in. We hosted refugees, we had foster kids in our home. It really created a mosaic of cultures and experiences all under one roof. We were able to travel to different places in the world. I was really privileged to be able to do that. Today in my own family, I continue on that and haven't been able to travel as much, but we purposely take our kids to different cultural festivals. We read books from authors from all walks of life, and we have a lot of conversations, purposeful conversations that widen our understanding of people who think different or come from differing experiences. And those are the bridges that we really are creating in the present. So continuing on with the toolbox analogy is let's, some tools that we can use as bridge builders is kind of a cultural toolbox, I'll call it. And so the different things we can look at, travel is very clearly one. But a lot of people can't travel, whether it's size of family, access to resources. Travel is a wonderful experience, but not everybody's able to do it. If you can't go far, there's a ton of resources in local areas. Every community really is a microcosm of the larger world. And there in your local environment, you can find a lot of experiences in museums, parks, festivals, historical landmarks. If you get a chance, talk with and learn from people groups that were the historical landowners in your area. Learn from them, learn from those resources. And so there, even in your own local area, there's a lot of resources. You don't have to travel to be able to look at other cultures in the US. Diverse literature, books like the ones in our Lightning Lit series can transport your kids to different cultures, times, situations. We've been able to look at people from Latin America and mythology from different countries in Asia. And all of those can foster a deeper understanding. Even with my kids being teens and tweens, we still do read aloud sometimes, audiobooks, and that type of thing. And it prompts family discussions. Sometimes we'll all just listen to even though we're doing it all on our own, we'll listen to the same audiobook and then talk about it every week. Good literature can provide both mirrors that reflect your family's values and windows to the world around you. So it's a great way to go. Hosting is another great one. Like what the family I grew up in, you can consider inviting the world into your home. It can be an exchange student, a refugee. Just arrange a play date with a kid from a different background. That whatever it happens to be, it can be a really enriching experience. And I value the friendships I've made through those experiences. Another tool is volunteering. You can participate in community service days, charity events. Lots of those types of things can teach empathy and expose your kids to differing facets of society. You can choose age-appropriate opportunities. There's local food banks, animal shelters, lots of different places are looking for volunteers and would love, you've got to be careful depending on the age. I know our local animal shelter, you have to be 16. So just depending on your age of the kid, find that age-appropriate one. And again, we live in a modern world. Digital engagement, use the internet. It's there for you. It has all sorts of pitfalls, but use it to your advantage. And there's virtual tours of museums all over. Smithsonian has some wonderful resources. There's kid-friendly global news platforms, educational documentaries, and all of those can really expand your kids' worldview. But simply exposing your kids to different cultures and experiences and viewpoints isn't enough. We need to equip them with tools to think critically about what they're encountering. So one of the things you want to do is encourage them to ask questions, share their thoughts, and respect diverse opinions. Your kids may end up not having the same viewpoint as you. And so how do you validate their questions and provide them a safe place to ask them? I found car rides to be a great place because your eyes are on the road. And so since you're not making eye contact, it kind of decreases the intensity of the conversation. And so sometimes that's a great place for kids to be able to ask some of those deeper questions without having to, however they feel at the moment. So car rides are a great way, but there's lots of places. Sometimes it's just taking a walk with your kid and saying, hey, let's talk. But just making time and space for those open discussions. Dinner tables are great, another place to do it. The journey of bridge building isn't always comfortable, and it's definitely not easy. It can challenge your family's existing beliefs, comfort zones, and that's okay. It's a really valuable opportunity to both reinforce your family's core values while also teaching understanding and respect for differences. And you might even learn something new about yourself along the way, which is always fun. In our world, socioeconomic, racial, religious landscapes are all very vast and varied. And navigating all of that beautiful diversity requires not only understanding, but empathy and adaptability. Those are crucial skills for not only navigating the world around us, but also personal and professional success. So as homeschooling parents, it's our role to provide our kids with the experiences that help them develop those skills. Building bridges in the present is an active, ongoing process. It really requires us to be open and willing to learn alongside our kids, which is hard sometimes, keeping ourselves flexible and open. But the rewards of watching your children grow into thoughtful, well-rounded individuals who can interact confidently and respectfully with people from all walks of life is completely worth the effort. So it's worth it to continue to build those bridges in the present time.
Yes, yes, yes. So much. I have so many notes. I ran out of space, to be honest.
And we still have another point to go.
Oh, you do? Oh, we're right. No. I had to section it off because I was like,
oh, gotcha.
If I don't, it's gonna be all over the place, and I won't know what's what. But yeah, my little section of present is full. It was so many things that stood out to me. The first thing that I loved how you said, and I don't even know if you intended it this way, but this is how I heard it. When you were talking about how, you were basically your family's on an island and the kids have to go out, and how the bridges, really, when we think of bridges, a lot of times we're talking about crossing bridges, right? And we're thinking about our kids crossing so they can go on and, come back when they want to. But I just love the idea of the two-way aspect of the bridge and
Absolutely.
how we are the ones that build. Like it's a big responsibility whether you homeschool or not. But as a homeschooler, you're not just built, you don't want it to just be strong, you want it to be meaningful. You want it to, really make them want to go out and feel confident, but always know that they can come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I love that visual, and obviously that's what we're doing every day, but I don't think we're thinking of it like that. So that visual really is helpful. And then all the different ways that you gave us to engage in this present bridge building, conversations, literature, immersing ourselves in other cultures, traveling locally or beyond, the internet, volunteering and hosting. Those are two things that don't get talked about enough, I don't think. And those are absolutely, like you said, age, it just depends on the age and the comfortability, but those are very good ideas, very good ideas. And last thing that stood out to me was the social emotional learning that comes from it that really builds character. And, that's one of the things I figured out probably about year 5 that because my kids were still little, I wanted to focus on their character because I felt if I built that up, then the academics could come along and, later on.
Develop resilience and a lot will follow.
Yeah. And it's like, we always think, well, I guess this is my idea of society's thinking, like once they become older, then you can really teach them and have them practice who they are. But it's like, they've been doing that all along. So we don't have to wait until they're 13, 14 or 16.
Yeah, absolutely.
To build that character. Yeah. So many good points. Thank you for those. Really something to think about. Yeah. So we have one more question for the audience, whether you're live here or on replay. And we would like for you to share one way you help your children become bridge builders themselves. Because we've been talking about us being a bridge, but building a bridge, but eventually that's what they have to do too. So what's something that you do, one thing that you do to help your children become bridge builders? And you can jump in too, but I can share because it's kind of
Go for it.
what we were saying, but
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap.
yeah. I think when you build that character and help them know who they are, and you help them understand that there's a big old world out there with different opinions and everybody is different, that you give them the confidence to try. You may not be able to build that bridge for everyone in every situation, but the trying, the effort.
And along with that making mistakes is part of the learning process. You're not going to do it perfectly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that can be very hard for some kids, very,
Some adults too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's difficult to accept failure. I don't believe in failure, but yeah.
Have you heard the analogy, fail is first attempt in learning?
I think at some point but that's exactly how I view it. It's like, okay, well, that didn't work. Maybe I didn't achieve the goal, but that doesn't mean learning didn't happen. And I think the point is the learning is the process.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll probably go into some ways. I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, I think that's where when we talk about success, first you have to define success for yourself, and then your kids
definitely
define it for themselves. But if you can become that bridge builder, I think that is that if you have that goal and that can happen, then you have those skills that you built to be able to do that. That's success to me. That'll get
and going off of that success, you defining success and having your kids define success, their image of success may not be what you think it should be. And so letting go of that image and letting them define success for themselves is a huge piece. You can't, as parents, we've got to let kids be on their own journey at some point.
Yep. And like we said in the last point, or the first point about your own personal healing journey, part of that is letting go of that expectation that they're going to do what you want them to do. And you can raise them however you want to, but at the end of the day, they're going to decide.
Exactly.
And you gotta accept it, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Right. Well, let's move on to the future.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So I want you to start by imagining being in the shoes of your children. The future for them is a vast expanse full of promise, but it also brings a certain amount of uncertainty. I know a lot of children today are dealing with anxiety and all sorts of things at increasing levels. Our role as parents and educators is to equip them with the skills, the knowledge, and the mindset to navigate really uncharted territory confidently. I mean, look at 6 months ago. The world today is completely different than it was even 6 months ago, let alone 2 years ago. And so there is really no way we can predict what the world is going to look like for our kids as they grow up. And so we can help build bridges in the present. We can help build bridges to the past, but they're going to be the ones who are going to have to build their own bridges in the future. And so our job is to give them those tools to be able to build their own bridges. Lots of ways, surprisingly. One of them is active learning programs. For example, the National Innovator Challenge is one. It's a program that underscores the importance of learning from your mistakes, the importance of, it employs the design cycle. So the design cycle says you have an idea, you build a prototype, you test it out, go, oh, this isn't work, and reiterate and kind of go through multiple iterations before you finally come to a a product that could go to market or is worth, is valuable to present. And so there's a lot of active learning programs like the National Innovator Challenge that use these models, these crucial life lessons in, it might be a STEM activity, but that can then be translated into real life of problem solving skills and resilience. They can be online, they can be local competitions, they can just be a family project. But having those active learning where the kids are diving in and making mistakes and learning those skills really is critical. Another one that we talked about that I'll bring up again is community service. Community service, involving kids in community service, again, nurtures that empathy and understanding of societal needs as a whole. It keeps us off the island and says there is a larger world around us. So it could be tree planting, it could be fundraising, it could be helping out in a local food bank. Really, it's whatever age and stage they're at, finding a way to teach kids that they can make a difference no matter who they are, where they're at, what their resources are. Every person can make a difference in the world around them. Another tool for helping kids become bridge builders to the future is active listening. This is a hard one for some parents. This is a journey. Some parents here. Effective communication really does start with active listening. You got to make it fun. You can set up role-playing scenarios, introduce learning games during your daily routines. Sometimes it's, when a kid is in meltdown, go find a joke and just sit on their bed and start telling them jokes until they have been able to regulate themselves. But reflective listening is another part of that, where you're reflecting and saying, hey, I heard you said this. Did I understand that correctly before? Or, right now, I'm hearing this. Do you want me to listen? Do you want advice? Or do you want some quiet? And give them that option of what they need and taking ownership and making that part of that active listening. Another tool is appreciating diversity. And this is something that you model yourself as well. Encourage an appreciation of diversity by integrating those books, media, experiences, discuss different cultures and traditions and perspectives, and really developing that appreciation of the beauty of differing thoughts and differing experiences is a big piece. Another one is really embracing change. Our world is changing really, really, really quickly, as we've said. And to equip our kids for this, we need to nurture a mindset that really sees change as an opportunity, not a threat. It can include fostering creativity, critical thinking, growth mindset. We all need to be able to distinguish what should never change, values like honesty, transparency, respect for others, versus what might need to change as our cultures change based on the context where we're living. And this could be, I move overseas and they have a different acceptable dress code or a different style of grammar. Language changes. A language is a living thing. And so what is acceptable grammar may be changing. And so being able to help our kids distinguish what they want to hold on to, those values like honesty and transparency and respect, versus what is fluid and changeable depending on the culture that you're engaged in at the moment. So teaching them that embracing change is healthy and not a threat. Another piece is introducing complex subjects early. A lot of times we as parents get scared to approach, whether it's a difficult history topic or a difficult science topic. I'm a mathematician, so math comes easy to me, but the language and grammar is harder for me. But let's take chemistry, for example. I don't know if you know, but 80% of underrepresented populations either fail or drop out of organic chemistry, which is one of the required courses if anybody wants to go into medicine. And so if we want to change figures like that, we have to rethink how we're approaching learning. We've been able to partner with a professor out of Arizona and develop the MC Detective Agency. And it's a comic book series designed to teach kids as young as 8 college level chemistry concepts. She equates it to learning music. When you learn music, how do you start? Where do you start? You start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. It doesn't matter if you're 8 or 108. If you're learning music, you start with the basic concepts. And that's true for a lot of complex topics, is you find a way to break it down at an age appropriate way and break down those concepts and start introducing them early. And if we're able to teach kids the language of chemistry or the language of music or all these different languages at a young age and expose them to it, then they've developed the language inherent to who they are, and it's not so intimidating, and they're able to break down some of those barriers as they grow and out into the future. So ultimately, as we are building these bridges to the future, it's really crucial to remember that this is a shared journey. We're not in this alone. We're not only do we have each other as we journey through this, and we're not just guiding our kids across the bridges, we need to cross them together hand in hand. We need to show them by our actions that we're embracing diversity, that we are being open to change, that we are striving for that continuous learning. They're not just principles that are out there and dry, but it's a way of life that we are adopting as a family, so that they can then use that as part of who they are as they're going out into that larger world. In this era of constant change, the ability to adapt, to empathize, to think critically are more than just some general skill. They're survival tools. And so by by equipping our kids with these tools, we're not just preparing them to face the future, we're really empowering them to shape it, which is what we need. The bridges we're building today are going to have those far-reaching impacts, not just on our kids, but on their kids, the future generations as well. It's a legacy of resilience, of empathy, and lifelong learning that we're wanting to create as we're going into the future. And there's really no greater gift we can give our kids than that bridge to the future. So overall, as we look at it, being a bridge builder, it is really how we want to equip our kids for success. There's the tools of going to the past, the present, and the future. And whether it's personal anecdotes or one of the different things that we've ideas that we've given today, I hope that everybody out there is willing to journey along with me in helping kids build bridges and embark on the journey together. So I'd love to hear if there's any questions out there as well.
Absolutely. If anyone has any questions, please start putting them in the chat. There's so much information that we were given today, so much wisdom that was shared. And, sometimes it's a lot to take in because everything's like, yeah. But any questions, absolutely drop them in the chat here. In the meantime, I'll share some of the things that stood out for me. One of the things that I really love that you shared that I don't see talked about enough is we talk about starting early which I'm not normally someone who starts early. I kind of wait, for the kids. But I love the idea of starting early with complex topics. Because it does, developmentally, that just makes sense. But just like as far as just meeting them where they are, It's like they can learn what they're capable of right now. And it doesn't have to be the big picture. We're always thinking big picture, right? But just
if a kid's not ready to learn to read, don't force them to read. But that doesn't mean you can't talk about those complex topics.
Exactly. You just start at the beginning. Like anything else, no matter where they're at. And I love that. That is really, I think, affirming to homeschooling parents, especially with littles, because you're so worried about all the things that are coming. But it's just start, because everything can feel complex, but start with where they're at and start at the beginning, regardless of how old they are. That doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if they're 6 or 16.
It doesn't.
Meet them where they're at.
And I love how, books are catching up with that, where there's
Yeah.
so many things that are open to look, even babies, they're talking about all types of topics that would never be talked about before. It's too old for them, but is it? Is it really?
Nope.
I love that. Um, one of the other things she said was in the very beginning, put yourself in their shoes. And I don't think we think about that enough. Because as kids, if we really stop to think, being a kid is hard. Okay. Everything's new. You have all these adults that have these expectations and they have their own stuff going on. And all you're trying to do is learn and play and like what you're doing, but if we can remember what it is like to be a kid, then I think that helps us empathize a little bit more and be more reasonable.
Yeah.
And remember that, even as a kid, I think most of us can really say, like, you may have been interested in some topics that may have been too old for you, but had a parent, and hopefully we had this, but many times in school, you had to learn what they gave you.
Right.
And it's like, well, sometimes you might be ready for more. So if you look at your child, who they are and where they're at, that's more helpful than any other homeschooling advice anyone else could give you.
Absolutely. Every kid is unique. Your kid is not going to be like their sibling, not going to be like their cousin, not going to be like the kid down the street. They're unique, and meeting them exactly where they're at and saying, you know what, your sister might have been ready for this at your age, but you're not. This is you. We're on our own journey. Let's deal with it where we're at.
Yeah, that's empowering to the parent too, because you feel like, okay, I'm doing the right thing for my child right now. And then with the kid, they're like, oh, they are listening. They trust me a little bit, and
Exactly.
attention. The last
It's
thing
that
I'll
active
say,
listening.
right. Hello. I was just about to say the active listening. I underlined that because that definitely, and even with the reflective listening, that those two things are, those skills really are something that you have to develop. Some people are just naturally good at listening. Most of us are not. And
It's definitely a learned skill for me.
Yeah, I think most of us are, because that's how society has taught us, like the people that are talking the most are the most knowledgeable, that the smartest kids in the class. But a lot of times those really quiet ones have really good insight, and they're listening and paying attention and taking it all in.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a skill. I love that, because you even talked about a little bit the emotional regulation, and that's such a hot topic right now, learning to regulate your emotions as an adult to help your kids. And that's something that I think, speaking of being a bridge builder in your personal journey, a lot of us did not learn those skills to learn how to regulate our own emotions.
Right.
So how can we teach our kids how to do it? But these are ways to do it.
Absolutely.
Learning alongside that, just everything just overlaps when it comes to this kind of journey, and sets our kids up for success, just like we said talking about in our talk today. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say before we move forward is embracing change. I love how you kind of broke that apart and talked about like a lot of different aspects, because we think change it can be scary and it's good, but I like how you said, like, when you go into different cultures, like you have to know who you are and what's important to you, where your morals are, but that doesn't mean you can't do things differently, in a lot of different ways. And I think that distinction is so important for people to realize. You don't have to change everything about yourself, but there are some things to be open to see what resonates. So I love that you brought that up, because you wouldn't think that has, that's what I love about homeschooling. It brings up all this stuff that you don't think is about homeschooling. But
and I love the dialogue and community, and how having different people and different thoughts, it makes me think, and it makes me go, and it makes me learn. And I love that.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts. That's how I started, like, trying to be more active, because I love learning from other people that are doing this same kind of journey, but everybody's is different. And you have these aha moments, like, wow, that's really insightful. And you may not have come across that on your own,
Exactly.
I love it. I love that. Well, it looks like we didn't have any questions. But thank you everyone so much for being here, for joining us today. Thank you, Kristin from Hewitt Learning, for sharing all your knowledge and your wisdom. I love all these different examples to get people started. That is so important. I just wanted to let everyone know that this session will be available on the World Homeschoolers Day YouTube channel later today. I am going to put this up later today. So if you didn't catch the examples, or you just want to look at it again or share with your homeschooling friends, please do. Don't forget that next Thursday session is with Kelly Edwards from 90-Minute School Day, where she's going to talk about home education and neurodiversity, embracing a strength-based approach. And it sounds like it's going to overlap a lot of things we talked about today.
Love it.
Yeah, so thanks again, Kristin, for being here and for sharing with us. Thanks for everyone who is watching, and everyone have a great day.